All right, guys. So today we're going to be checking out basically a first of its kind type of headphone from a pretty higher end audio company. I mean, this company's known for their tower speakers, which come in at around $28,000. And up into the pair of headphones that we're going to check out today, their least expensive headphone was around $1,800 to $1,900. So the company that I'm talking about is HEDD Audio. A lot of audiophiles are going to be very familiar with this company, where a lot of just normal consumers may have never heard of them. And I think this is the direction that they're trying to go in, because they are making the headphones, which are the Headphones D1. This is the pair that we're checking out today. They're kind of making it a little bit more affordable. Now, it still does come in with a price tag of $799. So this isn't going to be like a consumer friendly, like on the shelf. You're going to find them at like Walmart and Target. But for a company like this is a pretty big leap to kind of drop $1,000 less than your least expensive headphone that you already had in your lineup. So the D1s are an open back pair of headphones, but they're labeling these as being the first pair to ever use a thin ply carbon diaphragm. Now, they did this in development with a Swedish company, which is Composite Sounds, and they're basically saying that this is going to be a very fast, precise, not necessarily reference, but very quick headphone, which we will talk about that once we get to the sound. Now, all of the parts on the D1, I do want to point out, are completely replaceable. We have seen this, from other companies like Meze Audio, which kind of gives you peace of mind if you are going to spend this kind of money, that if something does go wrong with your headphones, it's going to be easy to fix it or replace a part and not just have to throw away something that you invested almost $800 in. Now, as far as the overall build and design of these, it is pretty plastic overall. It does have metal that runs through the headband itself. I love the very simple, sleek look to these. It is all black. It kind of has like a matte finish. I didn't really see that anything on these headphones are shiny at all. So it's very, very subtle. The headband material is a fabric material. It is pretty firm, but the good thing here is the headphones are fairly light, so I didn't ever have any kind of discomfort on the top of my head. The ear pads on these are a velour material. I found them to be really, really soft. I kind of still would have liked to have at least had maybe some pleather pads in here, just so you have the option of both. But the velour pads are very breathable. I didn't notice that they got warm or hot or anything like that. Now, as far as plugins on the ear cups, you do have 3.5mm inputs on both sides. So the cable does have to plug into each ear cup. And then speaking of that, let's go ahead and jump into the accessories, because this is going to lean over to the cable itself, which does have the dual 3.5mm plug-in that goes in both ear cups. The actual material, again, it's kind of like a fabric material. I kind of found the cable to just be basic, and it wasn't anything special, but again, it kind of fit the subtle look that the D1s already had. But on the other end that plugs into devices, it is also using a standard 3.5mm headphone plug-in, but also within the box, it does include a 1/4-inch adapter so that you can plug it into amps and DACs and anything that uses that. And then as far as any other accessories, it comes with a pretty nice zippered hard case, which I found to be pretty compact because it was really just the size of the headphones. So it's not one of those that has like a lot of just empty room inside of the case. And then inside the case, it does come with a little pouch that holds the cable and the adapter. And that's pretty much it. I mean, you can keep the accessories and the headphones with you all the time. And I really feel like the carrying case is just to get it from point A to point B. This is not a pair that you would want to travel with and obviously listen in public, because it is an open back headphone. Any room that anybody's going to be in the room with you, they are going to hear absolutely everything that you are listening to. So going back to talking about the 1/4-inch plug-in and what you would plug it into, and the first thing I get questions about is, do I need an amp with these? And I am going to say this, coming in at 32 ohms, it's pretty easy to drive and get some decent volume out of. But if you really want these to shine and you really want to get your money's worth, you definitely need to plug them into an amp, because really just plugging them straight into a phone or just a basic device without having an amp or a DAC be able to really push these, they can sound pretty lifeless. They can sound dull because there's nothing really to just amp them up and get more out of them. But the devices that I used throughout testing these is I did use a FIO K11 amp. I used a Q-Style Sigma amp, which I used with my phone. And then I also used the new Crin Ear Protocol Max, which we talked about here recently. And all of those devices had no issues really being able to get good sound out of these. So The big question is, how do these sound? Well, the D1s and having that thin ply carbon diaphragm, which they describe is having a fast and accurate sound, that really is what these go for. I would say if you're looking at the bass on these, they're not really focusing on sub bass. They're not trying to, have it be loose or give you that, rumble or anything like that. But I'm not going to say that these are like lacking in bass. It does have a punch to it. It's just really fast. And I actually found this to be really enjoyable with genres like metal, where you have the double bass of the drums and it's moving along pretty quickly. I think where people might be disappointed is if you are used to having like consumer grade headphones, something that's geared a little bit more towards the low end. And if you just mainly listen to genres like pop and hip hop and you're used to just that rumbling feel, that's not going to come out of these, and that's not what these are for. This is a very just detailed headphone, and you can tell this with the mids. The mids, I didn't feel like they were trying to like cram right there in front of you, but they did kind of push them slightly in front of the rest of the mix. So if I was listening, well, it didn't really matter. Whatever genre I was listening to, whether it also be male or female vocalists, they always sounded like the instruments were just slightly behind them. Vocalists were just really well represented, no matter what genre I was listening to. And the treble on these, it was kind of a little bit different. I would kind of expected these to have like an overly bright treble, and it can get bright if you're going to listen to them like really loud. But overall, I kind of felt like the treble was smoothed out, and it really did sound natural. So if you're wanting that like overly bright treble, I kind of was surprised that that's not what these had. Everything, again, I'm not going to say it's flat. I'm not saying that it's trying to go for that reference sound, because I definitely don't feel that way. But I do feel like the treble has a lot of details to it, really natural. Same thing with the mids, without being, too upfront. I don't feel like they were just trying to do anything to just go over the top. I felt like they were trying to go for a more reference tuning, but things still did stand out a little bit more than that. The treble was brighter. The bass did have quite a bit of punch. It didn't sound flat or lifeless like I've had with a lot of other reference headphones. And when it comes to the soundstage and the sound imaging, I guess it probably shouldn't be a surprise here that these did sound very open. And one thing I was really surprised about was how easy it was to be able to tell where different sounds are coming from. And so that kind of leaned me to want to try these for gaming. And this is an area that these are spectacular in. With gaming, movies, TV shows, dialogue sounded up front. You could hear subtle footsteps. You could tell where things were coming from. Everything kind of had like a layered feel to it without having that like, artificial 3D effect. Now, I was really impressed when it came to using these for that type of media as well. So my overall opinion is basically this is going to be a top competitor in headphones under $1,000. I just think the sound punches well above that sub $1,000 price genre, at least out of all the headphones that I've tested. The only people I really wouldn't recommend these for is obviously just a normal consumer that's looking for a pair of headphones to use in their day-to-day life, because I wouldn't take these outside of the house just because of how much they leak. And I also would not recommend these for bass heads. Anybody looking for that, rumble in the bass or that subwoofer type effect, that I just don't feel like there's as much focus on the sub bass as there is the upper and the mid bass. And I think, again, bass heads might be disappointed here. But what I was really impressed with is the accuracy and the details that these headphones had. And I think it's a really good move for HEDD Audio to, kind of break into the sub $1,000 market with these headphones. And obviously coming out with something new with a different type of diaphragm that's not in other headphones, because audiophiles are always going to be interested in checking out what's new or what may be different. And then obviously they're going to want to compare them to everything else. And these stack up really well with other, again, sub $1,000 headphones. But guys, that wraps up my video on the brand new HEDD Audio headphones D1s. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.